Hello, 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 hello. Big love from London. A little dark over here where I am because it's 8 p.m. But we really wanted to just keep up the consistency of these weekly YouTube lives. And so I'm super, super excited to be here streaming with you live from Hyde Park, Grosvenor Hotel. Really, really enjoyed our stay here. It's the last night that we're here. If you are here with me live, say hi in the chat. I want to know that you're here. And tell me where you are right now, because maybe we're populating the whole globe. That would be super cool. And of course, if you're watching the replay, I'd love to know that you're here too. Let me know how I can help. Today, we are talking about sales. Haven't talked about sales explicitly in a little bit, and so wanted to come on here and give you some foundational tools to support you in moving through the most common sales objections that come up in any kind of sales conversation with ease and grace and clarity and power, and really in service to the person that you're talking to. This is not a training that is designed to support you in selling something to someone that doesn't want it. This is not designed to help you sell something that you do not want to sell. This is just if the person that you're talking to actually wants this thing that you sell, and you actually want to sell it to them. So I just want to name that out the gate. I had a VIP day today with one of my amazing European clients. And she asked this question that was really, I think, really important. Like, how do you know the difference between manipulation and influence, particularly when you're selling something? And so I just wanted to bring that in out the gate, that this conversation, the truth is that these tools that I'm teaching are very powerful and they can be used for good or evil. So I'm only interested in sharing what I know about sales with you so that you can be more in integrity, more in service, more in your authenticity and honesty. And to really help you bring your influence in service of the people that want to learn from you, not ever to take away someone's consent or take away someone's power to choose. And, at some level, you can't do that. Everyone has their own power to choose. But I just want to name it, that this is really meant to support you in taking your integrity to the next level. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, Eric. Hi, Trina. We are, in fact, covering California to Europe so far. So let us know if you're in the Philippines or something like that. That would be really fun. There was one other thing that I wanted to just throw out there, which is that in this conversation today, in this training, I'm going to guide you guys through their objections. And the kind of overarching tool in each of these three examples that I'm going to go through with you has to do with clarity and just helping the person in front of you get more clarity. There is an equally important, and I actually think even bigger, conversation to have around your objections and how to move through your limited beliefs in order to close a sale. And I'm tabling that. We'll be looking at that more throughout the next, indefinitely, but specifically the next 6 months. So stay tuned on that. Throughout this training, ask whatever questions come up for you in real time. I will either answer them live or at the end of this call, or if you post your question in the comments, then I'll answer it through commenting afterwards or in a future YouTube video. So bring those questions. All right. 3 main concerns. I'm lumping them into buckets, and I'm just going to review the 3 buckets, and then I'll go through each one and how to move through it. So the first one is, I can't afford it. This is scarcity around money. The second one is, I don't have the time. This is scarcity, obviously, around time. And the third one is, I have to talk to my partner. And this is, if it's a true objection, this is a scarcity around personal power or personal permission or personal agency. And so I like to think of, it's again, if they are a sincere objection, then they are coming from scarcity. They're coming from lack. And there is no lack. That's a lie. So you have the opportunity to bring more truth to the conversation. Hi, Becca. Welcome. And the only way you can do that is by knowing yourself what the truth is. So if you believe that there's not enough time, or you believe that there's not enough money, or you believe that you have to get permission from other people in your life in order to do something, then you're going to see that reflected in what people bring to you, the objections that you hear. So that's just another note. That's more kind of about your psychology, your limited beliefs. But I think it's relevant to flag that if you're seeing a trend in the way that people respond to you and the things that they bring up, it's probably a sign that you are holding that attractive. You've got your own material around that. And it's a great tool to help you reflect and grow. So scarcity around money, scarcity around time, scarcity around permission. And my hypothesis here that I present to you is that any objection, any sincere objection that you hear is one of those three things, falls into one of those three categories. So, yep, exactly. Great, Vanessa. Yeah, I really think that anything that you guys experience falls into one of those categories. If you can think of something that you don't see fitting into one of those categories, again, not enough money, not enough time, or not enough permission, calling it, then let me know. And that's a great question to bring to this group. So let's talk about how to move through. One more foundational piece. So if you're hearing these things, your first job is to figure out if it's sincere. And the reason that I say this is because we are not trained in our society to say no. It's very hard for people to say no. So it may be that you are talking with someone who wants to say no, but doesn't know how. And if that's what's going on, your job is to help them say no and feel great about it, because that's such a huge thing to celebrate, right? Especially in a world where we are not encouraged to do that. You can really give a lot to someone who is in their no and really means that and just needs help saying it. And in fact, some of those relationships, some of the people that I have been able to do that with those relationships feel the cleanest. Sometimes those people come back and hire me later. It's like really giving that, so you get to bring the abundance of money, time, and permission. And part of that can show up in giving them permission to say no, giving them permission to be in their truth. So that's the foundation on which all of the rest of this feedback is based. And if you are doing too much, like if you feel like you're working harder than they are, then try out the no. You can even say, like, just feels like I'm working way harder than you want me to. Is that true? It feels like maybe this is a no for you. Is that true? Right? So you can basically posit the no, give them an offering of the no, if that's what you're feeling. And it's really valuable to pay attention to your own energy, your own emotional signature. Because if you are feeling like you're fighting, it's not going to feel good. Even if you can close the sale from that point of view, it's not going to be a good relationship because you've entered into it with a weird foundation. So you want to really kind of keep the standard high on how good you feel as you're in this closing part of the sales conversation. So if they want it, and you've determined that they want it, they really want it, like they're fighting for it. If they are fighting for it, but money terrifies them, or they're scared about the money because they feel like they don't have enough, then you can ask them, like, if you had the money, would you do it? Because if you truly want it, the money's here. And one of the stories that I tell, one of the stories that I had to find in my own experience, because I think this really helps. Like, I don't want anyone that's watching this to just take the words that I'm saying and regurgitate them. You have to own these truths. This is not a script. I don't teach sales as a script. So You have to own this truth. So I'll just tell you the way that I make sense of that. And then you will find your own story. So there's two things about this. One is that when I was a high school math teacher in New York City public schools, I worked almost exclusively with low-income kids. And when I say almost exclusively, I mean like 2 kids that I ever taught were not low income. So probably over the 12 years that I worked in schools, I met maybe 2,000 to 5,000 kids. I don't even know. And again, like I could count on one hand, how many of them had even middle-class income like I grew up with. So underprivileged, low-income kids came to school every day with the newest kicks, the newest, cell phones, technology, the newest hats. And what I took from that, now, again, at different scale, not everybody came in every day, and different people with different things. But in general, what I learned from that is that everybody's a spender. Everybody's a spender. And so if someone doesn't think they have the money, it may be that they simply don't want it enough, that they don't actually have the urgency to do the work to bring in the money. Here's another example. When I was teaching, and I give this example on purpose also because I wasn't always an entrepreneur. And so when I was teaching, I was making 5 figures. I was making stable income, but it wasn't a lot of money, especially for New York City. I think maybe, I can't actually remember, maybe $50,000 a year. And I got invited to go to India for the first time. This was 12 years ago, I think. So I got invited to go to India. And when I did the math, it was going to cost me about $5,000 total for 10 days. And to me at the time, that just seemed insane. I mean, I had never spent money like that on myself. What is that? $500 a day. I mean, it was at that time, it was mind blowing to me that I would spend that kind of money. I didn't think I had it. I didn't know how I would come up with that money. And it wasn't even coming from a rational place. It wasn't like I had this budget and I was over budget every month. And so I knew, or I was in debt or something like that. It was like just a feeling and an emotional feeling that I couldn't afford it. And so I just talked it through, looked at the numbers. And frankly, part of what I did, because this is my nature, was just feel like if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it. I watched my parents live in fear around not having enough money, and I don't want to do that. And so even though I don't really fully know how I'm going to pay for this, I'm just going to do it. And so I did it. And it was a different way of spending money that particular month, but it didn't actually have a big impact. And I name that because I don't want to diminish. There's sometimes when people make unconscious choices around money. That's not what I'm trying to advocate for. But in general, it's never a scarcity of money. It's always a scarcity of urgency, or that stops people, or just simply a fear that they can't get over. And so your job, if this scarcity around money comes up for a potential client, is to help them just think logically through this. So you ask the questions that are going to help them understand, what is it really? Like, if you had the money, would you do it? Because if they say no, then great, they're a no. And you can give them, like, I generally have this part of the conversation before I've even told them the price. So, and then after I tell them the price, sometimes this comes up again. So, I'll say the program is not $100,000. In fact, it's not even $50,000. So let's just say that you had $100,000 stashed away in the bank. It was set aside for coaching with Jesse Johnson. Would you hire me in this moment for this program? And if they aren't absolutely a yes, I end the conversation right there. If they are a yes, then I go deeper. Okay, well, what is it that's really, like, what would it take for you to bring in the money? Let's get creative. Because if, and I do teach this, if you want it, the money's here. You wouldn't want it otherwise. If you want it, all the resources are here. Whether you want the coaching with me, or you want to buy a new car, or you want to rent a bigger apartment, or you want a new lover, or you want a new hairstyle, or you want to write a book, whatever it is that you want to create or experience in your life, the resources and cooperative components for that creation are already in your energetic field, or you wouldn't have even had the vision. So you got to like trust your vision. And again, if you as the person selling are practicing this truth, then when you speak it to your potential client, you will transmit the sincerity and truth of the teaching. If you're out of integrity with that, it won't work. That's why I'm saying you have to own these teachings. You cannot just kind of take what I'm saying and repeat it back. You have to really believe it. All right, before I go on to the second objection, let me just see what you guys have written. Yep. Truth. So Vanessa asked a great question. Why are people so afraid to invest in themselves? You guys actually, I think the truth is, you know this, but just quick response to that is that it means change. And we are, all of us, we have at least two parts. The part that wants to grow, which is our nature, and the part that wants to stay safe, which means staying stuck. And no one, I don't think really anyone consciously wants to stay safe. That always comes from fear, from the past patterns, from some wound or injury or whatever from the past. But it's real. It's a real feeling. And it's why being masterful and conscious in your sales is such a service, because whether someone says yes or no to you, if they make a powerful and conscious decision, they are investing in themselves, whether they do it with you or not. So, Vanessa, I would also encourage you to just like reflect on your own experience, because you have absolutely known moments of fear in investing in yourself. So just remember that and kind of mine that for the answer to your own question, and then bring that compassion and insight into your sales conversations. Because you can almost always, you can say to people, oh yeah, I totally know that one. Let me tell you about the time, you know? All right. We are taught we are the last on the totem for energy in, especially the people I work with. Becca is writing this and talk to. Investing in themselves is such a massive step. That's a great point too. It is also, it's not just the fear of growth, it's a radical move. I think it's becoming more and more mainstream in terms of the talk, but in terms of actually living it, it's rare. It is rare. And most of us weren't raised with examples of people doing it. In fact, Sri and I were just talking about this recently. One of the differences in our parenting, that his parents he never witnessed them working with mentors in his whole childhood. So he didn't have that model of what that looked like. And I think that's super common, super, super common. All right. Yes. Okay. So Vanessa is emphasizing this, and I want to then emphasize it even more. So your job is not to avoid their fear, but to go right into it. It's like, yeah, let's look at that together. Because if you can't support them and they can't receive support, both, in that fear that comes up in a sales conversation, you guys shouldn't be working together anyway, right? They have to be able to receive support, and you have to be able to hold the container for them to feel all their feelings inside that. That's not trivial. That's why most people don't do this or aren't that good at it. It's a powerful crucible that you need to be able to hold. A crucible is a bowl made of a metal that won't melt when you melt metal inside it, right? In other words, it's got to get really, really hot and not be affected, not be melted. Otherwise, it can't hold the hot metal. So you have to be able to be that crucible and not sacrifice yourself in any way. That's why it's so important that those of you who are doing this work and holding these containers for others have someone holding a container for you. Yep, trust your vision. Absolutely. Yep. Great. You guys are doing great. Okay, let's shift to the second most common objection. And I don't mean it's less common. I just mean it's the second one we're going to go over, which is the scarcity of time. This is really the same thing as scarcity of money. So you can say, well, if you had the time, would you do it? Because if you truly want it, the time is here. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, you know, and you get to decide what you do with them. So this is this objection comes up in two ways. It can come up with people who are so busy they can't even imagine creating more time for themselves. And so then if they feel like they're a yes and you are just helping them claim their yes and get all in, then the questions that you want to ask are vision questions. Like, what would it look like for you to create this time? What would the benefits be of creating this time? What would it feel like to choose this for yourself? What would it be like to invest this time in yourself? If they are resistant to that, again, it's the same thing I said before. If they're fighting you, you don't need to push them. That's not going to work. Right? And again, you're not here to coerce people that don't want to do the work. You're not here to manipulate people who don't want to do the work. You're here to serve the people who want to do the work to step into their yes. And in order to do that, you also have to be willing to let them go. You got to be willing to hear no. And in fact, I would even say, for the purposes of this conversation, you need to be willing to say no. This is feeling too hard for me. I'm not enjoying this conversation anymore. Like, I just feel like this is a no for you. How does that feel? You don't ever have to drop anyone, right? I always like to follow up any statement that I make with a question. I think that's a really respectful way of entering any conversation, because you want to include them. It's not about protecting yourself or defending yourself or cutting them off. It's about honoring the truth of what they are communicating, whether it's verbally or not. And sometimes the most helpful thing you can do for someone is just say, you know what, let's take this off the table. This feels like a no to me. I feel your no. That's mostly what I'm feeling. So let's just say no. If that changes, let me know. You know where to find me. So when you're like, I'm not attached to this, I'm not going to work harder for this than you are, then you free everyone. So generous, so generous. So any questions about that second one? It's super similar to the money one, so I don't think we need to go too much deeper. Pamela, thank you for sharing. I would love to hear more about what's powerful for you, what you love. Yes, Becca, I love that. Same amount of time as Beyonce, and look what she does. My God. Woo! And here's a side note about that. The people that we look up to as a society who do so much have huge teams of people. They have huge support systems. Some of them need more support systems, but they, like Beyonce, it's not like Beyonce is doing it all on her own. She's got tons of people working for her, working with her. I'm guessing she's had many mentors also. So that's an important awareness to have, that actually probably you have to find if this is true. For me, for sure, in my work, if people are feeling a shortage in any area of their life, whether it's money, time, love, personal power, whatever, working with me is going to resolve that. It's going to help that. So that's the reason to hire me. If someone says to me personally, like, I just don't think I can afford it, I'm struggling to just pay my rent, I'm like, that's the reason to hire me. And I have seen, I say this regularly when I'm in sales conversations, because this has been my experience, that 100% of the people that say yes to working with me find the money, 100%. And that doesn't mean that everyone says yes or that everyone finds the money, but the people that don't find the money, it's because they aren't a full yes. They're not actually doing the work. They don't have the urgency. They don't have the desire. So that's an important reflection. Yep, you guys are doing great. Follow up any statement with a question. Absolutely. That's true throughout any sales conversation or any part of the sales conversation. Vanessa's question, what if you know you can help them and you know they want to do this, but they are so scared? Where's the balance? That's a great question. First of all, this is personal, right? Everyone gets to decide this for themselves. But what I'll say is that it'll help you to answer this question in advance, right? Before you're in the call. So you have a sense of like where your boundaries are, what your parameters are, what you're really looking for, and what your deal breakers are. In my online course, there's a module that actually guides people through this. Those of you that have taken it, in module 2. And that, I think that question is really, really helpful. Like, what are the qualities that I'm really looking for? So for example, I much prefer for people to be like, I'm doing this. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care how hard it is. I want this and I want it with you. Let's do it. And I'm terrified. Like, they should be terrified. Working with me is terrifying, but it's also worth every moment, every dollar, every cent, you know? So, but like, I want their desire to be greater than mine. And then similar deal breakers. Like, if somebody is not receptive to my questions, then they're not coachable. And so I'm not a good fit for them, and that's fine. I'm definitely not for everyone. This is becoming more and more clear to me, you know, over time. I've known that forever, since I started my business, but it's like, as I grow and begin to scale, even in my biggest scale, it's clear that I'm not for everyone. So I trust source on that. So Vanessa, the only other thing I would add to that is, again, this like internal feeling. If you feel like you're working harder than they are, if you feel like you want it more than they do, if you feel like, if it just feels out of balance, like, you should feel the balance internally. That's how you know, in your body. Yes. So Becca is bringing up a great point. I just want to name this. So I catch myself wanting to fight for them because I know how much this work would serve them, but then I just end up fighting them. How do I know when to let them go or keep supporting them? First of all, just ask, do you want me to help you say yes, or do you want me to help you say no? Like, if you're genuinely confused, just ask. I could do either. Which would be the most helpful to you right now? Which would be the most growthful for you right now? Because I'm here to help you with whatever it is you most desire. The other piece I'll just name, and we should do a longer video about this, but whenever you're in a sales conversation, you are talking to both the consciousness of that person and the unconsciousness of that person. So it's almost like you're having a conversation with two people. And depending on your level of awareness, you might also have two people inside of you. So, you know, you just got to stay real clear in your own self that you're acting from consciousness. You can have whatever feelings you have, write down the triggers, but like, bring your attention back to the person in front of you. Because I think generally when you end up fighting, you're not actually fighting for them. Like, what? Who cares? Who cares? Really? I mean, I get it. You wouldn't be doing your service in the world if you didn't actually care about other people. But it doesn't really make sense that you would care so much that you would go into any negativity on your part in order to fight for them. So my guess is that anytime you end up feeling like you're fighting, probably your subconscious has gotten in there a little bit, maybe a lot. But if you're really clear, you're feeling good, you're feeling like clean and supportive and really open, conscious, and they're fighting you, you just know that that's their subconscious. And then your job is to sort of figure out, like, how can I call forth their conscious self? How can I invite that part to step up a little bit? And that's an art. I had my same client today was like, I need to practice sales. And I was like, yeah, you do. How are you going to do that? And I had an answer in my mind, but I wanted to ask her. And she was like, I got to make sales. And I was like, yeah, that's really the only way to practice. You know, all this inner work is brought to the table when you enter a sales conversation, but ultimately the best way to get really masterful at overcoming sales objections, for example, is to just have more objections and overcome them. All right. You guys are doing great. Great comments. We're about to go to the next and final objection. I just want to make sure that I am seeing what you're saying. Yep. Yep, exactly. The only thing I'll add to this thing about, do you want me to help you say yes or no, that I want you to be mindful of is that if you have to be in your full clarity, like ready to hit the table, full clarity. So, and I say that because sometimes, for example, when I first started doing sales calls, I don't actually even remember which coach of mine told me this, but at least one of my coaches, maybe both at the time, Marla and David, told me, don't take no for an answer. And that was a necessary strategy for me at the time, because I was hearing no and immediately exiting the conversation because I couldn't handle the rejection. So that was an example of me not being able to be the crucible and just like dipping out. Like, oh, you want help saying no? No problem. Here, say no. And when I practiced not taking no for an answer, I learned a lot more about how to hold that container for people. And it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And you have got to listen to your intuition. You've got to listen to your emotional body so that you are not crossing your own lines of integrity. And everybody's got a different sensibility about that. So you have to do what's true for you. All right, final objection. I have to talk to my partner. So same basic principle here. Your job is to help them get clear about what's actually going on there. So the first question that I like to ask is, what do you think they'll say? Like, what do you expect they'll say? What do you hope they'll say? And you'll learn so much from this, because sometimes people will say, I think they'll support me. And then it's like, okay, so then what's the concern really? Because it's not really about having to talk to them. Or they'll say, I think they're not gonna like this at all. Okay, great. So if that's what they say, what are you gonna do? You just help them anticipate what will happen in that conversation. I often, if I feel their yes, and I'm a yes, and if they want help to talk to their partner because they want to say yes and they need to do so in collaboration with their partner for some reason, then I will often offer to talk to them and their partner. And when I do that, I will ask their partner to share every objection, because their partner often has things to bring to the table that are important, right? Like if the partner doesn't believe that they're going to do the work, I want to know about that. Why not? When else have you seen that happen? I have taken on clients who were making this choice for themselves without their partner's input. I have worked with people who got their partner involved and fully enrolled. I have worked with people who have said yes, even though their partners didn't really want them to, and move forward. And it's, so you can work with whatever this scenario is. But the important thing is that you are, again, maintaining your own pillar of clarity, truth, and values, that you're not going to work for them. You're going to work in service to their vision, whatever that is. So I think we're good. I feel like that was a very complete training. Just looking at my notes to see if there's anything I missed. I think I will say in closing, and if you guys have more questions, please pop them in the chat, because I'll wrap up here soon. The general theme of this whole training is that your job always through a sales conversation, but particularly with objections, is to help get clarity, both for yourself, but also primarily for the person that you're talking to. What is really being expressed? Because oftentimes what's on the surface is a cover for the deeper fear or doubt or worry or concern. And you want to use this to go deeper. Use this to help people learn more about themselves. Use this to serve people so that they are making a powerful and aligned choice for themselves, whatever that choice is. So, part of the reason that I haven't done this training before is because I don't really fully believe in sales objections, like the whole concept. I'm like, but there are enough themes that I thought it was worthwhile to kind of bring this up and talk about each one individually. The truth is that the objections are real pieces of the people that you're considering working with. They want to be seen and known and integrated. They want to be brought to the surface. And they're an opportunity to see how serious someone is and find out what is really on the table. Clarifying questions are the key. And in order to ask those clarifying questions, you just have to be willing to be really clear, transparent in yourself, that you're not attached to the result. And by the way, sometimes I am. Like sometimes I think this is kind of what Becca was talking about earlier. Like I get really excited to work with someone in particular. And I'm like, bye, what I want you to say yes. And sometimes I'll just say that. Like, hey, I just want to be clear. My personal preference is that you find your yes, because I love you and I love your work and I want us to work together. And that's not really that's not really relevant. You know, I'm sharing that with you because I'm a human and I want to connect with you. And I sometimes share that with people because it matters, like it's significant. I'm very selective about who I work with, and I'm very selective about who I offer to work with. So I want people to know that I don't just offer programs to everybody. And so there's meaning there. But then it's like, okay, and that's not the point. What do you want to do? What's going to serve you in your vision? What's going to get you closer to your goal? So really, really fun conversation. Thank you so much for your engagement, so much for your questions. If this video is helpful, and I'm seeing lots of comments that say it is, will you please like the video? Because the little thumbs up give us some extra like pops on YouTube. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. That'll give you notifications and also, again, just kind of improve YouTube's like thinking about us. I love you guys. Those of you that I know, I love you. And those of you, if I don't know you yet, like I can't wait to know you. If you are looking for opportunities to go deeper than a YouTube live, just message my team, info@jessiejohnsoncoaching.com. And whatever it is that we've got on the table that might be of service to you, we'll throw it at you. We've got a whole range at this point, really low cost offerings, really high end offerings, in-person, virtual, whatever works for you. So see you next week. Have a wonderful holiday, wonderful Thanksgiving, and let me know how these tools and resources support you guys. Blessings and love.